Good evening. Ever we come together to mourn, we come together to express love and support. And at such moments we turn to God as well for love and support. And we begin with a Mariv service, page 264, and we ask you to please rise.
Adonai Hashem Melech Ya'anenu B'Yom Kareinu Baruch Et Adonai HaMorach Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Ba'ed.
You may be seated.
El Chai V'Kayam Tamid Yimochalenu Le'olam Ba'ed Baruch Ata Adonai Hamari Baravim. Ve'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch Ata Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha b'chol nafshecha b'chol meodecha ve'hayu hadavarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibartam v'shivtecha v'beitecha v'valechtecha b'derech v'v'shokbecha v'v'kumecha v'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafo bein einecha v'uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha v'bisharecha.
We can continue reading silently, page 266.
Adonai Elohechem Emet.
267.
U'malchuto b'ratzon kiblu alehem Moshe u'Miriam u'bnei Yisrael l'chanu shira v'simcha rabba v'emru chulam mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh Torah tehilot osef elem malchutcha ra'u v'nechvo k'yam lifnei Moshe ze'eli anu ve'amru Adonai imloch le'olam ba'ed Ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov u'ge'alo mi'ad chazak mimenu Baruch ata Adonai Gal Yisrael.
Amen. Hashivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom hamadim hasim hil oyev deb v'fekar b'ra'av yakom haseh satan yifnei.
Ushmor tzeitenu u'poinu l'chaimol shalom me'ata v'yad olam Baruch ata Adonai Shomer amo Yisrael.
Amen. Kaddish Shalom, page 269. Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma divra kirute v'mechmachute b'chayechon v'mechon v'chayrecho Beit Yisrael Bagala b'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yeshmei Rabbah m'barach v'elam le'olam hayah יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר בתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא וימרו אמן.
Silent Amidah begins on page 270. Kaddish Shalom, page 280.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברכהו תבל מלכותי, בחיי חונה ומחנה בחיי לכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לעולם היה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר בתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא וימרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיא, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל וימרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Aleinu 281, please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol latei gedula leotzer breshit shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot v'lo samanu kemishpachot adama shelo sam chalkeinu kahem v'gor aleinu משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ששמי ברצי משמעי רבושם שביקר משמעי ממעל של ירים ונאמר בהיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated, all those observing a yahrzeit or in period of mourning. Words of Mourners Kaddish, page 282.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי חון וביומי חון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
We ask you to please rise for El Mali Rachamim, the mourners. El Mali Rachamim, Shochen Bamaromim, Hametze Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechinah, B'malot Kedoshim Uteorim, Kedarakia Mazirim, Et Nishmat Aliza Rivka, Bat Arash Neor Avraham Alevi, Judy Leah, Shehalecha Leolama, Began Eden Menuchata, Anna Balarachamim, Hasireha Besetek Nafecha Leolamim, Otzeror Bitrachayim Et Nishmata Adonai Unachlata V'tanuach B'shalom Amishkavav Nomar Amen. Turn back to page 282, Mourners Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי חון וביומי חון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. Yehi Shmei Rabam Borach Leolam Omeo Maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kodesha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushpachata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav Uyase Shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, Amen, Amen, Amen. So thank you all for being here to provide me with the transition back to life from mourning my sister's death. I've been through the funeral and sat Shiva, and I'll be mourning for another 30 days, the prescribed amount of time for mourning a sibling. My sister was diagnosed with breast cancer 6 years ago, and she fought a valiant and tragic fight. She was a strong woman, kind and sweet, and she fought the cancer with determination and ferocity. Over the past few months, I've been visiting Aliza every few weeks, and each visit was progressively more difficult, her body growing tired, her breathing labored. A week from last Friday afternoon, I got the call from my brother-in-law that my sister passed away. He and their kids booked a flight leaving from New York on Saturday night at 1:50 a.m., and Aliza's body would be on that flight, and the funeral would take place straight from the airport. So Vicki and I booked the last 2 seats on that flight and made our way to LaGuardia. And Jake, our son, lives in New York, so he borrowed a car from a friend and picked us up at LaGuardia and drove us to JFK, and we barely made the plane, but we touched down in Tel Aviv on Sunday night. Maya, our daughter, picked us up in Tel Aviv with our friend Eric, and they drove us straight to the funeral at our family's cemetery in Beit Shemesh. At the funeral, her husband, her 3 children, and my older sister eulogized her beautifully. I recited the 23rd Psalm, and from there we went back to my older sister's home in Alon Shvut. Alon Shvut is a prominent settlement, the home of Har Etzion Yeshiva, known as the Gush. So I sat for 3 days in the Gush with my older sister and her community, and then we flew to Chicago to sit Shiva with our brother-in-law and his family, and we sat there with them and spent a family Shabbat together. On Sunday morning, it was time to get up from Shiva, and as is tradition, we took a walk around the block on a cold and rainy morning in Skokie, Illinois, and we got on a plane from Chicago and landed back in Houston yesterday afternoon. And so here I am, and I've concluded sitting Shiva for my younger sister, and it's time to begin the Shloshim, the 30 days of mourning here in my community with all of you. Aliza was the youngest of 3, the baby of the family, and she was my father's favorite little girl. I have vivid memories at the Shabbat table of my father and my sister sitting together, my father stroking Aliza's back. She was dutiful and she was beautiful, and she made good grades at our Orthodox day school. She studied in Israel for her gap year, and she attended Stern College for Women. She worked in human resources, guiding people with their benefits and their retirement plans. She was remembered by her colleagues as a consummate professional. She'll be remembered as a wife, a mother, and a very recent grandmother, and a doting aunt to my children. She'll be remembered by her community as a woman of substance and grace and beauty. She'll be remembered by her friends as a woman filled with love and warmth and joy. She died on Hanukkah, and during the eulogies, her youngest son, Yonah, noted a connection. And he said, "In Judaism, the greatest strength isn't loud or dramatic. The Greeks believed in power that was visible, impressive, and celebrated, strength that made noise. The miracle of Hanukkah came from the opposite place. It wasn't won through speeches or declarations, but through perseverance, for continuing forward one day at a time, even when it felt overwhelming. He said that my mom lived that lesson. She didn't give us long talks about strength. She didn't make a show of what she was carrying. She showed strength by continuing forward, by showing up, by caring for other people, and by doing what needed to be done with kindness, even when it was hard. That's what I'm holding on to, he said. My mom showed us how to keep going when you're tired, not with speeches, not with big statements, just by doing what needed to be done again and again with kindness and with strength. Mom, he concluded, will carry you with us in how we live, how we love, and how we take care of each other. May your memory always be a blessing. Friends, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it deeply. Vicki and I and Nava will have a seat up in the front row. We'd love to greet everybody who's here. And so if you don't mind, sort of make a line, sort of like at a funeral or a Shiva, and we'll be able to greet everybody in turn. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you all.